All right, hey everyone. So I'm gonna start with a few years ago. I had Mark Ford on here, and it was in the depths of FinPub's kind of crisis, um, when everybody was pulling promos, when everyone because of FTC stuff and like things were going south. And he said something really kind of like uncomfortable. He said that he wasn't sure if our model, meaning the Agora model, was really had a future, basically. And then recently, I heard a rumor that after Chris Cimorreli's latest promo, which did what, 4.5 million on day one and 8.8 million over the next couple of days, um, there was a rumor that Mark said something along the lines of, "This promo restored his faith in our newsletter model." So my first question, Chris, is how does it feel to have restored the faith of a very wealthy man in the model that made him wealthy?
It almost felt as good as putting up Agora's best sales number in 7 years. It was my personal best. It actually beat my personal best day one number by 3 times. And it honestly it surpassed the expectations of every single person at Paradigm Press. We literally did a poll, like a bet, within the entire like Slack channel of the graphic designers and the producers and the videographers and the marketers and everyone who was on this project. It's like, what do you think the day one total is going to be? One person guessed like 3.2, which was the highest mark, and it did a 1.2 million more than that. So that felt spectacular. Um, and yeah, I saw that email come through from Mark Ford, which was pretty cool. I've spoken with Mark a few times over the years. I'd like to catch up with him next time I'm in Florida.
That's
But
pretty
it's
killer.
definitely it does feel there's something I want to say that just it really is a team effort, and it really shows you what happens when you have a well-oiled machine at your company. I'm going to be the last person to tell you that like the copywriter is the most important ingredient. Like, yes, the copy is really important, but having a team of very, very professional, driven, fast-working people is the only way that you could get those kind of numbers today.
Yeah, yeah. So just to back up for a second, everybody, this here, if you don't know him, is Chris Cimorreli. He's more than just a copywriter, though he's clearly an awesome copywriter and putting, like I said, putting up the best numbers in Agora, pretty much in a very long period of time, really. Um, and you are also an editor. You mean you're an
Yeah,
analyst. Um,
yeah.
so like, let's back up before we dig into this promo because there's a lot of stuff to talk about with this promo. What's your background in FinPub?
So I started with the Agora companies in 2014. It's a bit of a funny story. I was an English major in college. I wanted to be a teacher. I love those movies like, To Serve with Love and Freedom Riders and all that stuff. And I wanted to save the world. I had these grandiose visions of doing that. And I ended up getting a job in Baltimore City teaching in an alternative high school. And I left after 3 months because my students were at a third grade reading level. None of them had two parents in the household. And it was an alternative high school, so it was like worse than like the typical bad high school in an inner city. It was actually completely untenable. So here I am, fresh out of college with an English degree, living in Mount Vernon by Agora. Don't know what Agora is. Start looking for writing, editing jobs, and see this advertisement for six-figure copywriter. And I decided that's what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to write for a living because I loved writing, again, English major, and money sounded good, really good when you're fresh out of college and shit out of luck and fresh out of a job. So I ended up applying to, I mean, almost more than half a dozen positions. They eventually threw me a bone and they're like, hey, we're hiring an editorial assistant at the Sovereign Society in Delray Beach, Florida. And by this point, I'd moved back home to Charleston, South Carolina. And I had no interest in moving to Florida, but I'm like, I really want to work for this company and I just want to get my foot in the door. I want to write copy. I just need to get my foot in the door. I look at the Sovereign Society and it ended up being perfect timing going there when I did, but it was at the time, very much like I could say this, the redheaded stepchild of Agora. It was doing maybe $6 million a year. It wasn't profitable. We had this other division of that company called Dent Research with Harry Dent, which was actually successful and profitable. But it was kind of a risk on my part, but it ended up being very, very fortuitous because a year later, we had a man step in who ended up becoming my copy mentor for many years, Aaron DeHogue. who grew Sovereign Society, changed his name to Banyan Hill, grew 2,000% in 3 years. So I got to watch that evolution and study under him, and also very elite copywriters like Angel Suarez. And of course, I was in the industry at the same time that guys like Jared Feintup were putting up $10 million with every single promotion they wrote for Money Map Press. So everything worked out pretty well for me. A lot of luck involved. Would never have figured out what Agora was if I wasn't living down the street in Baltimore, Maryland 12 years ago. And I'm back in Baltimore today. I decided to move back here so I could be close to the headquarters, the operations of Paradigm Press. But so I mean, I've been writing copy. I ended up getting into copy in 2016. Basically, I've put up, I don't even know what the number is anymore. It's 85 million maybe at this point. But I've always, as a copywriter, really cared about trading and understanding the financial markets. I've made a lot of money. I've lost a lot of money with my own trading, and I think that's what makes me able to write things like this promotion, where I think when people write this, they can tell that whoever wrote this has a really, really firm grasp of the narratives behind the stocks that were selected. And it requires that little bit of extra insight that I have been cultivating very intentionally for a number of years, to the point now where I'm actually the analyst on our microcap newsletter with James Altucher. I've been managing that product essentially for a year. I pick most of the investments on it. I run them by him because I'm not a Wall Street guy. I never worked on Wall Street, never managed money. I don't even have a finance degree. I was an English major. But it's actually turned out to be a very, very successful product, and the readers have responded to it very well. And I've now, in the last year, in my personal trading account, I've made 1,000% gains 18 different times and 18 different trades. So now we're launching a new product where it's just like a swing for the fences, like go big or go home, like speculative options trading service, where it's just like, I have cracked the 10x code. I figured out the exact architecture of how 1,000% gains happen. I've done it 18 times in the last year. I've never been putting up huge amounts of money, but I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars on these 18 trades, never investing more than like $3,300, I think was the largest position size. So for financial copywriters, something always occurred to me that was very strange. I always thought it was strange how many financial copywriters I would talk to, and they just like put their money in an index fund, just like, have you no soul? Have you no drive? Have you no desire to like lose money, to take risks, and then figure out the emotionality of that? Because that's, I think, what makes you really, really good.
Yeah,
Making money is good, but like sometimes when you lose money in the market, like that's the best teacher you can ever make. And that can be your catalyst to writing really, really, really killer copy, because now you get it. When you make a decision about your money and then you screw it up, which I've done, like full disclosure, I've made it back, but that's a journey that really puts you in the mind and heart and soul of your subscriber now. So yeah.
that's awesome. So let's talk about this promo. Well, actually, that reminds me of some things that I remember Porter talking about how like he likes to write these dense promos because
Yeah.
he's like, if you're an actual investor or trader, you want to talk, you want the information. And if it's just if it's super light on any type of meat, then what you're really getting is the customer who is not a real investor, and that is
Yeah.
not a great customer. He doesn't keep buying products, he doesn't stick around because he's not really in the markets. And so I think
Yes.
what you have is actually you have this I would bet that if you were going to line up copywriters and customers, that you would see a very obvious like breakup of people who like actually are in the markets and who are not start to show
Yeah.
up. Not with everybody. There's some writers who can do it, but I think there's a lot of people who write things that are much more, well, just light.
No, no, I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're getting at. And this is something that we do very intentionally at Paradigm Press. I mean, yes, most of my sales are still from Banyan by virtue of the fact that I spent longer there. I've been in Paradigm for almost 2.5 years now. However, working for that operation has definitely helped me up my game. I mean, you could, there are copywriters with more sales than me. I'm doing very well right now, obviously, but we always want to have like a story. And our publisher, Matt Inslee, he always says something like, it needs to be weird. There's gonna be something weird about it. Like he really, really cares about that weirdness, like that very unique edge and specificity that you haven't seen anywhere else. And just something that just breaks up the pattern, that just, just
which
taps
is
into something
that's
raw.
I love that because to me that is classic, like classic newsletter, right? The
Yeah,
newsletter
yeah.
world was always like this weird dude in his basement who had this crazy experience maybe on Wall Street and he figured something out and he's taken a weird angle or he's going after weird markets or he's doing things that you don't see elsewhere. Um, and like part of the problem I think we have is with trading and investing kind of being mainstream,
Yeah.
that a lot of what we say sounds like what you see elsewhere now, and it's very hard to stick out if you're not, to use his words, weird.
Well, we have gurus like James Altucher, who is genuinely a weird guy. And I mean that as a compliment. I've followed him for much longer than I've worked with him. I always found him very, very interesting. He's a Renaissance man. And I think that people see him and they're just like, this guy is clearly brilliant and he's strange as hell. And I've never seen anyone like him. It's funny. I was actually I took a trip to Germany with my choir in June. And unfortunately, we were launching a promotion that I wrote for James. And someone in my choir was sitting behind me on the plane while I'm like typing edits on the video, like on the plane at like 3 a.m. in the morning, 50,000 feet in the air. And then when we got off the plane, this Rachel is her name. She was like, I have to know what you were doing on your computer because that guy on your screen just looked so strange, and I've never seen anyone like him. And that's the point. He's not buttoned up. He doesn't wear a suit and tie. And Jim Rickards is kind of the same way. Jim Rickards
Hmm.
has a kind of a strange quality to him. It's just like he's very, very soft spoken, but like very, very elite, but at the same time, very contrarian. Like has a kind of like darkness to him. He's a very, very sweet man, actually, but like his worldview is very much like there are problems, and I'm going to make sure that you're aware of them, and I
Hmm.
have knowledge about how bad it is that you do not
Yeah,
have.
they're
So
distinct characters.
exactly, that's what they are.
Yeah,
They're characters. I have a bit of an acting background, just on the side. Always liked doing theater and choir and stuff like that. And you've got to have something distinct. And if you're just buttoned up with a suit and tie, then at the same point, it's like, well, how are you really so different than the guys I see on CNBC? Like I can get that for free. I mean, you pay $50 a month for cable, but at the same time, it's just like I'm already paying for that.
right. Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about this promo then. So,
Sure.
um, there's the this was if I remember correctly, this was a kind of a all the editors get together
Yeah.
and do one big promo. So
Yeah.
there's that element of it, but then there is the like you want to walk through what the thematic is of this promo, and then we can get into kind of like the what you did.
Absolutely. So, um, and did we say what this ended up doing on day one? It was like $4.4 million
Yeah,
dollars.
that's what I started. Yeah,
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 and you have to understand that like there is a certain architecture to putting up a number like that. So I mean, it's really started with a conversation in May where Matt, our publisher, was like, we need another like 3 editor summit for PMG, the Paradigm Mastermind Group. That's our all-in basically service where it's just like for the price of one backend, you get access to our top 3 guys. And some people were pitching what they thought the best idea would be. Some people wanted to make it about energy and electricity because utility bills are going up and AI is like very, very hungry for power. And that was like an idea that like they could all comment on. And I was like, I just don't think electricity is really the right thing. And like this is May, so it's just like that trade war is still very, very much a hot topic. And I'm like, I think that's the topic. I think that Trump has now revealed in the last few weeks that like everything is about China. Everything comes back to China. And it's just sort of backing into this narrative. And we don't reveal China until like maybe 30, 40 minutes into the promotion. But it's basically this idea that like we're about ready to enter a new season, even a new age in America. We don't call it golden age because that's just a term that's out there. But it's this idea that we have 3 guys who have collectively through their independent research all arrived at the same conclusion. So that's why we're holding this all in summit, because historically when the 3 of these guys align, magic can happen. It's how they picked Palantir Technologies, in late 2020 or early 2024. In January 2024, the year it became the number one stock in the S&P 500. It's how they picked MP Materials before, like a couple of them like and like James's option service had like a 900% gain on MP Materials. The pick was something called USAR. That's the ticker, USA Rare Earths. And it's like MP Materials, a rare earth metals company. MP Materials is the only rare earth manufacturer in the country. USAR is more similar to Jim Rickards' birthright thesis, which if you're listening to a financial newsletter podcast, you would probably know what that promotion is. But it's this idea that Trump is unleashing the $150 trillion secret trust fund or birthright of minerals, oil, gold, silver, copper, natural gas that we have uh, on U.S. land. And so this company is more aligned with that thesis than something like MP Materials, which is already producing the metals. USA Rare Earths owns the largest rare earth site outside of China, and it's not profitable yet because there's not a mine yet. It's not set up mine. They just own the mineral rights. So it's one of those birthright companies. So you start with this idea that they're all in on the same idea, and it's at the center of America's biggest transformation in 50 years. And it touches every single major theme that's going on in the market right now. Because what does rare earths touch? Well, technology, because you need rare earths in technology. So it's at the center of like the AI revolution. It's also at the center of, reshoring, American manufacturing, of reclaiming, energy and mineral sovereignty, and unleashing the birthright. And there was like two other things, but it's just like going down this list of just like, hey, all of these hot topics that you see in the news that you've heard from us, there's one idea. All three of them have come to it. And this one stock we predict could go up 1,494% by this time next year. How do we get to that number? Very simply, you take the company's market cap and then you just figure out like how many minerals does the company actually have. And it turned out like the best estimate I saw was like $22 billion. So it was like a 1.2, 1. So you just go to percentagecalculator.com, 1,494%. Now you have a very unique, very specific number that feels real. It's not just saying, it's going to go up 1,000%. Like anyone can say that. It doesn't seem like it's based on anything. You need a specific number. So that's how we got that. But then it starts with Jim Rickards, because of course he's the one who's brought in the most front end names of the last, 6 months. And he's like, this story that we're about to talk about, yes, it does have to do with my birthright thesis I've shared with you, but in a way it's bigger because this impacts the core of America itself. Then he goes to James, and it's like James basically says, what Trump is planning right now could literally double the size of the US stock market. And there's one investment you need to own. It's the same investment we've all put our finger on that is really at the center of this big transformation. We call it America 2.0, which is just a term that just ripped off from an old Banyan promotion that Aaron DeHoe wrote. It's just a good term, but that was a manufacturing idea, that promotion, back in the day. And then it gets to Enrique, the third guy, who's not as well known to our file, but he's got serious street cred. He managed over $1 billion on Wall Street, so he's the only guy on our file who can say that. They're like, oh, we got like a $4 billion fund manager. That's pretty freaking hot. And then he gets up and he shows this chart of America in 1990. And it shows by state the average employer by sector. And of course, it was manufacturing. 2/3 of the country was this one color in 1990. And then you fast forward to today. And it shows you that in 3/4 of the country, the top, like highest average employer per state is healthcare. So now you go to this like, whoa, like we went from a country, a real country, a proper country, a first world country that made things, that, employed people in high paying jobs where they had function and purpose and actually saw the product of their work, to a country that takes care of sick people. And we really suck at doing that. And yet that's our primary function now. So now it's like you've really like brought an emotional charge to this. Where like you're kind of pissed off, but also like you understand that there's hope at the center of this. And even if you don't like Donald Trump, we don't make this about Trump really. We just make it about like this policy and this inevitable shift and dynamic that we're talking about. So now you've got the three of them. They've each made their pitch about like why this thing matters. And then Jim comes back in and reveals we're talking about China. And then you back into the rare earth thing. But it's also like China, like their economy's literally gone up 10,000% over the last 50 years. So 50 years is a big theme here. What happened 50 years ago? We basically started, offshoring our manufacturing center. China's manufacturing center is $5 trillion a year, roughly. And we get 80% of our pharmaceuticals, 90% of our antibiotics, and of course, like 90% of our rare earth metals, which we need in all the
Hmm.
advanced technology, blah, 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 blah. And from there, the rest of the promotion is cake. That's
Yeah.
like half the promotion, though.
Well, I love that. So the birthright piece is kind of the weirdness on the front.
Yeah, I guess you could say I don't know if it's the weirdness because
Well, because
it's,
it's
it's,
it's the unexpected, I guess, except for Jim's file.
yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
guess for people who are not familiar with that thesis, it would be unexpected. It's kind of like putting them in familiar territory. So it's like touching base with like, hey, where we've been. But it's also just one of these ideas that's very, very easy to articulate to a cold reader. Because it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I know we have a lot of minerals, and I
mhm.
guess I've heard that Trump wants to unleash this, and you guys clearly put up this big gain already, and you found something that's you're saying is 50 times bigger, because it has
Yeah,
50 times more of these elements. But then from there, after the all-in pick, which is one of 5 stocks we pitch, they each have their own, and Jim pitches an AI drone company.
hmm,
James pitches an AI automation factory company, and then Enrique pitches an AI power company because we're going to need, and
nice.
that's where the electricity thesis comes back into this because it's an
Yeah,
important element to this story, but it was only a piece of it. And then there was a
hmm,
final all-in piece at the end that's worked with 30, 40, 50, 100 large companies over the years. It's basically a manufacturing giant in the United States that no one knows by name.
right.
So that's how the architecture of this worked. And it's a 2 hour promotion, essentially, hour
Yeah,
40 minutes. Very, very rich in detail, packed with story, lots of emotional elements to it about like America and feel good, and also Trump, but also AI, but also minerals. So it's
hmm,
got something for every single person. And
yeah,
once you put those 3 guys and give that, they each have their own unique take where they're showing their own individual side of themselves and the way they approach the markets, but then also like it builds into this just like unit, this like
yeah.
unit.
And that I have to go back to that comparison of like 1990 to today and the move from manufacturing to healthcare. Because when you see it, like you say, there's an emotional thing. There's an emotional part, but it's also like there's a paradigm like you know what I mean. It makes something that a vague feeling that people have about what's happened to our economy seem very concrete, and it just putting those two up next to each other by itself creates a narrative,
Yeah.
right? That
Because
then
we've been frogs in boiling water for so
yeah.
long. It's like we understand there's something we went wrong somewhere, but you don't really think of it. And I just made sure to put this into very, very clear terms, where it's
Hmm.
just like these free trade deals were dumb, and just do the side by side comparison of China's economy 50 years ago. Ours was 10 times larger. And then we show what it is now. And it's like theirs is 2/3 the size of ours. And it's all because of this one thing. And now Trump
Hmm.
is reversing the one thing. So it's
Yeah.
very, very simple, but it's also just like you can't really argue with it. That is the truth. Like that
Right.
is where we have been. That's why people have voted for Trump, love him or hate him. And but
Hmm.
then you bring that up as well. It's just like it doesn't matter how you feel about Trump. You know this is happening for a reason. You know exactly why if you're an intelligent, reasonable person, which I think any financial newsletter subscriber is.
Or at least thinks they are. We all think we
Yes.
are, right? Like we all think we are. But also like that kind of like paradigm shift when you see things like that, like has a really strong, it's not just an emotional impact. It's I think of it as like this moment when you have moments like that in your promo, all of a sudden you've explained the world in a new way that makes everything else make sense to somebody. And so
Hmm.
like they're suddenly really open and engaged to your message because it's like, holy shit, I never thought about that. And that moment is like, I got to hear what else they're gonna say. But also like this is the person who made me see that thing that I didn't
Yeah.
see, and it's
Yeah.
impacted me so much that like I'm in on this conversation now in a way
And
that
once
maybe I
you
wasn't.
understand it, then you understand this is literally the biggest story. This is the
Right.
only story. And obviously, if we're reversing 50 years of damage that has created a $5 trillion a year business for China, there's crap tons of money that's about to pour into the USA. There's this recurring idea that, like, Morgan Stanley said this is a $10 trillion opportunity. And then our guys are like, this is not $10 trillion because Trump has already guaranteed $10 trillion in investments. You think that we're done? We're not done. We're nowhere close. That's from like a handful of
Hmm.
companies and actually sovereign nations that have agreed to put up $10 trillion in investment in the US. Because guess what? They don't want to work with China either. They're like, we're getting
Right.
screwed over by them. They interfere with our elections. They house cyber criminals. They do this, that, and the other. It's just like we kind of prefer to work with the U.S. Actually, it's just like they're bullies too, but at least they're not evil. Well, sometimes we're evil. We don't have to get into that, but that's it's this recurring theme of money, and it's just
Yeah.
like this is inevitable. You see what's happening. You know Trump is not backing down. Literally trillions of dollars are on the line. They're about to
So
flood into America's economies. But then you don't want to buy the companies like Apple, who's agreed to invest $500 billion, or Nvidia, who's agreed to the same thing, or IBM. I actually do own a lot of IBM, but like they're investing 150 billion. Instead, you want to invest in the companies that are going to be on the receiving end of those investments, like the drone companies. We need to invest in drones because China's arsenal is way beyond ours. We need to invest in factory automation for the same reason. They're way beyond ours, and we show all the evidence for this, which makes it
so
terrifying, which also makes it more guaranteed that, like, oh yeah, we're going to invest billions and billions of dollars in this stuff. Like, sign me
yeah.
up.
One of the conversations we've had on this channel, and at FMS and in the Discord, and I think we've had it separately offline before, um, is that like, in this, especially in 22, like when after the dip, um, we've talked about this thing that for such a long time we had copywriters who came up, you know, during the longest bull market in history that had, crypto come in. And you look back to all those promos. I know I have that document that has like the lead headline and lead complexes from all the promos that did like 10 million and above, right? On the back end. And all of those during that peak period of like, 2016 to like 20, they were all profit centric. It
Yeah.
was a new mechanism on a
Mhm.
black box system with thousand, all this stuff, right? And one of the conversations that we were having, in the dark part of FinPub, was that it's going to take a while for writers to adjust to like the old school
Mhm.
idea of an investment thesis
Yeah.
and building an investment thesis and not just selling potential gains. And that was
Yeah.
part of the FTC issues too, because an investing thesis promo is not going to trigger things in the same way as, hey, this is going to make, look at these 1,000% gains that are all cherry picked, right? Um,
Right.
and so to me, when you talk about this, like this is that idea exactly. Like you've built this amazing investment thesis that plugs into the zeitgeist of the times. Um, it's dense with information. How long was it? You said it was like an hour
Hour
and a half?
40 at least.
An hour, 40 minutes. Dense,
Yeah.
dense information going into
Yeah.
individual stocks. So you have a big macro thesis going down to the individual stocks from all the different editors. And it's not a make 1,000% because we have this secret system that does X and Y or whatever, and you make a bunch of money. It's a real like engaging investment thesis that like is a promo. And that again is like this is classic to me, FinPub. This is like the thing that made FinPub great to begin with.
I think I love the way that you're articulating this because it was funny because when I started writing copy, it was in that very bubbly territory. Like I basically started writing sales copy. I transitioned from editorial in 2016, and that was like the start of
Hmm.
like the real bull market. And that's when just like greed took over.
It was,
And as I was starting my copy career, I think that was probably good for me because I saw some of the things that people were writing in 2015 that were still very much that kind of classic FinPub style. And I'm like, this is so creative. And like, I don't know how they came up with this. Now that I've really like ingratiated myself in the financial markets for 10 years, it's very easy for me to come up with a story like this. That central stock was my idea. I recommended it in our other service that I manage with James, but I was like, that is the pick for this. It touches all of these guys. The only
mhm.
person I would have been worried about rejecting it would have been James, and we'd already recommended it in another service that I manage. So that's where but this was a lot of also this is just a lot of fun to write. Like I have to say, because it is just this rich and compelling idea that's satisfying in its own right. And something we haven't talked about is that we really made this like an event for the readers where they didn't leave feeling like they got pitched something, because that's the worst feeling in the world, right? That just happened
Yeah.
to me, the other day. It's just like I saw something that I wanted, and I set up a call, and then like they're just going through like 30 minutes of of questions, and it's this, this sales architecture where it's just like they're asking you questions to get you to say yes. I'm just like, I really would just love to just make this person shut up and be like, I have $85 million in sales. I know exactly what you're doing. Can we just get to the point? I'm a warm client. Let's just cut to the chase. I should just say that. I should just say that, John.
Yeah.
But for this, we gave them a free report the second they signed up for the hot list. I think they had to enter their phone number as well, but it was basically like anatomy of a 6,000% gain. And that was the peak return of that MP materials, that rare earth options trade that
Hmm.
we had recommended like a month or two prior to this promotion going out. And so it's just like, well, I kind of want that report, like anatomy of a 6,000% gain. So like, sure, I want to know what the anatomy of a 6,000% gain
Yeah.
is. How do you do that? How did you do that? So they get that for free. But then when they come to the promotion, it's just like if you stay to the end, you get this other report, and it's called the America 2.0 Roadmap: 10 projects bringing big business back to the USA. And it names projects like Northern Dynasty Minerals, owns the Pebble Project in Alaska. It also names what else did we give away? I mean, stuff like Project Colossus with like Elon Musk. It's just like obviously like Tesla's playing on that, but it's like so is
Right.
Dell, so is AMD. So it's those kind of like big, like physical, literal projects, like
Do those
lithium mines and things like
structurally
that.
structurally the ones that you give away directly and you really do those come first before you tease some things at the end?
No, it's because they don't
Um,
get that promotion until after.
okay.
But we don't suggest that there's anything in that report that like they've got to have. Like it's
Right.
interesting enough where it's just like, oh, I kind of want that report, but I
Right.
think it's sort of like understood that like you're not getting this one big friggin' awesome idea. It's like I want the one big friggin' awesome idea. It's like I appreciate you
Right.
giving me something, and I wrote that report. I picked those 10 projects. I picked the 10 companies like you could invest in that's attached to them. um, I, so it's just like so it's got good value because you've got an analyst who's actually picking this stuff, an analyst slash copywriter who's doing it. So anyone who got their report was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And it's like it's got a map. It shows like where the projects are. It's like literally it's like a roadmap. So doing that does two things. It boosts conversions because it gets them to stay to the end, and it just gives them that feeling. It's just like, oh, I feel good. I don't feel pitched because you gave me a compelling story and you're offering me something for free, which also boosts conversions, but it also doesn't piss people off, which is
Hmm.
good for future conversions as well.
Nice. And so I'd love for every copywriter who's listening to listen to that really closely, especially the ones who are kind of like struggling right now. Was it you that was telling me that like a couple weeks ago that someone was asking if you're hiring copywriters and you're like you're
Yeah, we
looking
had
for
this
ideas?
conversation where this happened
Yeah.
to me a lot where like I have people like dropping my DMs in LinkedIn and they ask me, "Are you hiring at Paradigm?" And it's a copywriter. And sometimes it's copywriters I've worked with, like good copywriters. And I'd have to tell them, it's like, you're asking the wrong question. The right way to do this is, what do you want to write about? And sometimes I can't get an answer, John, which is concerning. It's just like, why would you want to write here? Well, I mean, I understand like yeah, Paradigm's like the best in the industry right now, like we're putting with the best numbers, but I can also tell you I've had some promotions. Can I swear on here, John? Am I allowed to
Oh
swear on
yeah.
here?
Oh
I've had some promotions at Paradigm completely shit the fucking bed. Like I had a promotion that did like $250,000, which especially at Paradigm
That
sucks.
sucks.
It
Yeah.
sucks. It was like one of the worst things I ever wrote, and I wrote that at Paradigm. Actually, no, no, no. Funny story. The first thing I did at Paradigm, like after I transferred from Banning Hill and went there, it was a back end for Jim Rickards, and I wrote this idea. Matt didn't like it. Our copy chief Patrick, they didn't like it. They're like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do a live. We're gonna do Bill O'Reilly. We're doing it live, except it's with Jim Rickards, and it's gonna be the Emergency Banking Summit, and it's gonna lead to this landing page. We're gonna take some of the copy you wrote, put it on a landing page. John, this thing did $20,000. It's my first promotion at Paradigm. It has a hot list and everything. It does $20,000. And to the credit of the team there, we got into a Zoom call like this the next day, and I was like, "This can't happen again." And they were like, "You're right, it can happen again." And so on the next promotion, they basically gave me free reign, and that promotion did okay. It ended up doing $800,000, $900,000 over the next year, which is fine. Um, but where was I going with this? Yeah, you have to have an idea. You can't just be like, hey, I want to write for you. It's like, why? What is your idea? And or it'll be like, well, what services need some TLC? And it's just like, honestly, if we have services that have TLC, we'll just won't market them. We'll market whatever is hot and fresh, and we'll keep them on the back burner because it has good track record and it's servicing our readers, and it might be marketable someday, but it's not now, so we're just not going to worry about it. We're going to market what we can market because we can make
Yeah.
$100 million a year doing that and
And
keep that stuff for later. So it's
that's why
what is
like
your idea? What do you want to write about? What do you want to write about? What do you care about? This is what I'm
well
talking
it,
about, John. There's so many financial copywriters who don't even have like stocks that they care about. And don't talk to me about Tesla. I don't want to hear about Tesla. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Have another stock that you care about besides Tesla.
yeah. And
Rant
that so
over.
that this is where that whole deal, like this is again, this is classic newsletter in like right now, this period in time, the entire world is shifting, right? Like the whole geopolitical order is changing, which then means the entire economic system is changing, the supply chain, everything is changing, right? And it's a newsletter writer's market. If you love big ideas, if you love like the impacts of those torn through like markets and portfolios and everything, it's a fascinating fucking time, right? To write and talk
Yeah.
about markets. It's one of the most fascinating times probably since
I
like
yeah.
yeah. And so as a copywriter in this world, like it's back to classic. I came up under Clayton Makepeace, and he was one of
Mm.
the last like the bridge direct mail to copywriters to hear. And I remember like telling all the stories about direct mail and what they with him and Bensavenga, and they were like, yeah, they would have people hit him up and say, hey, we need a package. But just as often, he'd be like, I have this idea that I need to write, and I'm going to find someone to pay me for it. And he would pitch it to them. And that's the world we're in, is that like there should be things that you're just like, someone should be writing about this. I got to write about this. And pitching that to people is going to get you more work than the kind of very meek, like, well, what do you have to
Well, and I,
write
and I
about?
and I have to say, John, you're absolutely right. So this idea, this all-in summit, as I said, and I'm not dunking on the leadership of Paradigm at all. They've helped me up my game a lot. When I submit shit copy, they tell me it sucks, and then that pisses me off, and then I go fix it, and then I'm like, you're right, and then it's better, and that's how I am making the sales, the money I do. But they weren't necessarily eager about this like China tariff trade idea because, and this actually became a real issue. What if Trump makes a tweet where he's like, I love Xi. Xi and I are best friends. We're selling the US to China. Like, obviously, he's not going to say that, but what if he's going to say, we have a deal. We worked it out
Right.
before this deadline. And so the weekend after we filmed this, a news article came out that Scott Bessent, Secretary of the United States, and officials from China are meeting in Switzerland. And they're basically like, we're going to do another 90-day pause. And we're like, fuck. But like everyone was just like, well, we recorded evergreen pickups. We're just going to do the evergreen pickups. And I was like, guys, I know that you're pissed off right now because you said this would happen and it's happening. However, I have a hunch, a very, very strong hunch. Knowing Donald Trump as well as I do, I haven't even read The Art of the Deal, but I feel like I do understand the man's psychology a little bit. He's going to maximize his leverage. He's going to wait until the absolute last minute to announce officially that this next pause is on the table, because that's what the news showed. It's
Exactly.
just like Besson and these trade officials in China agreed on this, but Trump gets the last say. Why would he be like, yeah, that's fine? It's like, no, he's going to make China sweat. How do I know this? Because he's Donald Trump and that's what he does. If you know anything about how to make a deal and maximize leverage, which he is the perfect person at doing that,
Hmm.
that's what he's going to do. Sure enough, he did not wait until August 12th, which was the deadline. He waited until about 3 p.m., 2 p.m., August 11th. So we cut our deadline short by like a day, by which point we'd already made $8.5 million. So we're like, it's fine.
There you go.
We'll
Yeah.
close the campaign. We'll save an evergreen version, roll it out. When this next 90 days expires, but my point is what you said. I had to really fight for this idea, and to their credit, when a copywriter is really really impassioned about an idea and they make a really really compelling argument about why they need to do it this way, they will listen. And it does require just some like not putting your foot down, not being a dick, but just making a really good argument. And it's not
Hmm.
a copy argument, it's like a business argument. It's just like, I think this is the right business move. This is the story. And is there a risk? Yeah, there's a little bit of a risk. But that's also why we got the reward that we did. And
Yeah.
when this dropped, like all this like tension about like will Trump, extend the that's like in the news right now. Like now it's this fever pitch. And like at the same time, like he's announcing this deal with India and with Europe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now it's just like, oh, this topic that was hot in April and May, as we're approaching this
It's hot
deadline that we
again.
wrote this promotion around, it's getting really hot again. It's in the news.
That's when the
Everyone
promo
sees
gods
it.
are shining on you.
Exactly, exactly. Or yeah, my mother in heaven or something like that
Yeah.
looking out for me. Um, so,
It
but to
is.
your
It's
point,
like,
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
no, no, I was just gonna say, like, people have to remember, like, this is like the elegance of Bonner calling the company the Agora, because it was a market, which is a Greek term for market. It's the marketplace of ideas. And so like the ideas matter. And I think it felt like for a while during that boom that the ideas didn't matter so much. Um,
Yeah.
and that, it's a mean reversion. We're back to the industry. Ideas kind of ruled the industry for a long time. Um,
And the reason that this business really appeals to someone like me, like again, English major at college, I studied Latin. I understood what the Agora was. And I'm like, that's a really interesting and provocative and like just intelligent way to label and market your financial newsletter business. Because at the time, I
mhm.
had no interest in finance at all. I was very skinny. I didn't have a muscle on my body. I was just a dude who just liked reading books. I'm like, money, it's so
Ugh.
base. It's so pretentious. I was the pretentious one, but I was like, there's something interesting about the way that they're
Mhm.
pitching this company, and I think that's why the business is as successful as it is because it attracts like the money people, but it also attracts these like weird like libertarian people, and then it attracts people like me who's kind of like in the middle somewhere where it's like I'm weird, but I also like money.
Well, that's the
That's
thing, is
kind
like
of the
this.
point.
It's what's so great about it to me is like this, like, there's this weird intellectual intersection
Yes.
of the economy, politics, companies, investments, stock markets, and kind of like the, this constant dance that's happening between them. History, like, but the practical, like, you know, you come up with a thesis or an idea or an opinion, and you can tell whether you made or lost money on it, right? And so there's like this very in your face, aggressive kind of aspect to it. Um,
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, this is going to sound really hokey and very kumbaya, but it's really about the search for truth, is what I think. And that's what gets back to that intellectual core of it.
mhm.
Money, like it or not, is at the center of everything. And I mean, I think that working for this company has made me honestly a better voter. It's also made me just more sympathetic to the plights of every person, no matter like what side they fall on the aisle, because it all comes down to money and financial anxiety. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of financial anxieties these days. And finding that core truth, with this big intelligent idea and not just showing yourself as some used car salesman in a shitty suit really appeals to a lot of people right now.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily looking for salvation. They're just looking for like something, some guiding light, something that brings some meaning to the chaos of this moment. And I think that we articulated that extremely well with this promotion, where we
Hmm.
basically recapped 50 years of American history and explained why everything's about to turn. And it's like, if you've been waiting for something, this is the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I love that. So what do you think is what do you think is missing for so many, not just promos, but it's there's a malaise in a lot of publishing businesses right now.
There still is. Yeah, we've gotten over hours, and a lot of that is just like the brain power, and a lot of it is the leadership. Matt he's a workhorse. He really is. And but he also is a nice guy. He knows how to have fun, and he's very, very human. Um, and it's an interesting question because I do see this a lot in our business, where I still see a lot of those just like stale, safe headlines where it's just, and look, sometimes that works. Like Alex Green's like Next Magnificent Seven. I still see ads for that, and I'm like, that's working. Don't
Hmm.
stop it. Don't fight it. I mean, he does, like, and I think the Oxford Club kind of fits in that kind of like it's the Oxford Club. It has that elegance and that sense of elitism to it very intentionally. So that is
Hmm.
kind of the demo that you want to serve with that. So I give them a pass is what I'm trying to say. Um, and obviously that's one of the most stable, businesses in the industry. Um, but I think that because it's hard because I do see a lot of copywriters who just like, oh, I want to write about this idea that I like. Okay. Does the market like it? Is there any news? No. Don't write about it. Find an idea that you like it because it's relevant.
Hmm.
Find an idea that's relevant, that's different. And but honestly, John, like I spend a lot of time after hours when the market's closed, when business is closed, just like looking on my Robinhood account, just like chart go up, bit pretty. Well, I'll scroll down like, what are the related stocks to this stock? I've never heard of this one. Just doing research, which sparks a thought,
Hmm.
an original thought, and it's just poking around and finding this stuff organically, researching stocks, reading. Something's going to come to you, but you have to have these conversations with your peers in your business, and it can be outside of your company too. Just someone who cares about these concepts, and just have these conversations until that spark comes to you. But you need to have those people. No man is an island. There's no copy cave. Get out of your stupid copy cave because you're writing shitty copy inside of it. You think it's brilliant because it's you and you're in love with yourself and you love the way you look in the mirror, but actually it's not that great. I had the
Right.
same problem. Every first draft I write, I'm like, this is the
Oh,
best thing I've ever written. I submit it and they're like, this has a lot of problems. I look at it, I'm like, you're right. I was like drunk last night, like or something. I wasn't drunk. I
yeah.
was on, but it's something like that. Have conversations. Have conversations with people who don't just care about money and about the business, but about the ideas.
Hmm.
Intelligent people. And that's another example of like that's something Matt is very good at. Matt, very good at the business, but also just like we have a Slack channel called YOLO Trades. And it's just us being degenerates and being like, I want to buy this. This stock looks like it wants to go up. Let's go. Like that's the attitude, that's the vibe. But it's just like we've got a little bit of discretionary income that we want to waste and gamble because it's fun.
Right.
Like you got to have the fun. You got to have fun. Have fun. That's it. That's it. That's the trick, John. Just have some damn fun. Enjoy the business because it's so freaking cool. And
Yeah.
surround yourself with people who are excited about it, as well. That's it. I think it's the secret.
Wise words from Chris Cimorreli.
I try.
I love this, man. Thank you. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
Any parting thoughts to uh, the FinPub world here, other than like eat my dust?
No, no, because I'm wrapping up another promotion right now that we're a little skeptical about because it's a rush job. It has to go out before the FOMC meeting in September. Um, so we're gonna see if I can do it again. Chances are I'm not, and that I might be humbled once again. It happens to the best of us. It's this service I'm launching where I am going after 1000% winners. I figured out the architecture of it. I've cracked the 10x code. and it's a much more straightforward, greedy promotion, and so it doesn't really have that much of the bigness and grandeur to it. But what it does have is this just really strangeness to it, where it's just like you've never
Well,
seen someone have this many 1,000% winners. So there is this bigger element
and
where like,
recent
yeah,
ones, super recent
yeah,
ones.
in recent that helps too. So there is this bigness to it in the sense that like, yeah, there's this big thing that's going to happen on September 17th. I used this same thing 1 year ago to make three of these 1,000% winners. Here they are. I made basically six figures on those three trades. Um,
But
so
it's not,
it
but it's not a marketing gimmick, or it's not a repackaging of other things to make it seem like 1,000% gains. It's
right.
here is a real money track record. I
Yeah.
actually made these trades. Here's the stuff.
Yeah.
There's an immediacy and I think power to that that's different than repackaging stuff that like, oh, this could, if you got in here and got out there, you could have made this. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
visceralness gets lost in that in my
And
mind.
kudos to those copywriters who know how to write that copy, because I don't know how to do it. Like
Yeah.
I'm very simple in some ways. It's why I tried to get as much actual financial knowledge as I can, because I'm like, I don't know how to do some of this clever shit y'all are doing. Like
I think
this like
there's
back testing and stuff. I'm just like, how did you get so creative to manufacture an argument that doesn't really exist? I'm like, "Ugh." Like, kudos, honestly. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
great, you're a better salesperson than I am. Um, I have to rely on real, actual, tangible, physical evidence. Um, no, but
Uh,
so
well, you're
yeah.
an
Um,
embarrassment. Okay, just an
what's that?
embarrassment. It's just an embarrassment. Like you can't just
Yeah.
manufacture stuff out of your ass and sell it. Come on.
I'm not good at it. I'm really not.
No, that's
So
not. I don't think that's anything to be ashamed of.
I see really creative promotions sometimes, and I'm like, I can't do that, and it makes
Yeah.
me feel very inadequate, actually. Where I'm like, yeah, like I'm like, I don't know. It's like
This is just something about like I think careers is you figure out what you're good at and then you just double down on it
this
and
is
stop trying to do the
absolutely
things
true.
yeah,
Absolutely true. Yeah.
yeah. And so, your market always comes back around. One of the things when Clayton Makepeace passed away, um, one of the many tragedies of that was that I felt like for that last part of his career, the market was not his market, right? Like
Mm,
he
mm,
killed it in times of anxiety, times of fear,
mm.
and so I felt like, post COVID, like when things got set, like that was exactly the time. Like we're entering a market that like he'd have crushed it again, because it's
Yeah.
the kind of
Yeah.
thing that he did so well.
Mm.
Um, and so like, yeah, it was like, ah, you know, but
Well, I do think that there is an emerging renaissance for people who want to claim it, and I am also very glad that there is some talks about how this promotion, reinvigorated the industry. It's not the best promotion ever. It has not even broken 10 million yet. It will when we do a second campaign with it, which we will do. Obviously, there's promotions out there that have done 30 million dollars. However, it is a sign that like, oh, we're not out. We're not
but those
done.
were, I mean, it's been a minute since
It
we had,
has. It was the best 1 day sales number in Agora in I think 6.5, 7 years.
yeah,
So it feels good for a lot of people,
yeah.
because 2020 and 2021 were also pretty
You
decent
know,
friggin' years, and we beat that too.
you said
So
you said you said something to me before too that I thought was really interesting. Just to wrap it up with was that you didn't say it this way, but in my head, I heard it a little bit like a little bit. There's a little bit of an aspect of the 4 minute mile here where we stop believing that we could do this again,
yeah,
right? And that is one of those things. If you kind of like elaborate on that,
I think
I think
that's a
it'd be
great way
great.
to end this call, because I do have to
Yeah.
jump onto
Yep.
our 3 o'clock copy call
All
at
right.
Paradigm in about 1 minute. I could be a minute late. I've got a little bit of wiggle room with them now. Um, it is the problem of self-limiting beliefs, and this is something you see in like a lot of the old school like dating copy, like that stuff that you like stumbled upon at like 1 a.m. It's like this guy has the secret formula to make women love you. It's all about self-limiting beliefs, and I I don't like being underestimated. I've never underestimated myself. I've always held myself to a high standard, and this is going to be a big message in my 10x trader promotion. Is I wanted to believe that 1000% gains are possible. I manifested that shit, but it really is just about choosing to believe that this can be done and then just going and doing it and doing the hard work, but also enjoying the journey and loving the process and just really you have to have joy in it. You really do. For me, the money is not the first thing. It is I genuinely enjoy working in this business. These kind of intellectual conversations that also have to do with business, but just finding truth are what keep me alive. Quite frankly, I would blow my head off if all I did was just like have mind-numbing conversations all day, or was just honestly probably still teaching. That probably would have killed me too. But I think, yeah, just believing that it can be done. Remove your self-limiting beliefs because they are probably killing you in your business. And with that
Yeah,
said, John,
and thank you,
no,
sir.
go ahead, please wrap it
No,
up.
no, I was just gonna finish. I was just gonna say thanks for doing this, and I think with that, like the way that like that belief in the copy is that like don't believe that it's good enough. Go back to it and be like, how can we
Yeah,
make this excellent? Because it's gonna
yeah.
matter.
And like some of my best promotions at Banyan, like I wrote this promotion called One Trade. I literally spent 18 months writing that promotion. I don't know how I took that long, but it ended up being like a $10 million promotion. It was worth it. Um, but that's extreme. We don't have that kind of time these days, but go back and rewrite it. You're never, ever, ever going to get it right in the first try. And that's
Awesome.
okay.
All right. Thanks,
Hey, man,
Chris.
this is
You're
great.
amazing. This was
Yeah,
awesome.
you're amazing.
Same. Same. Love talking to you. Love talking to you.
You
So,
too, dude.
all right, take care. Bye.
You too. Bye.